get my hat right before the video starts. I can't have it being fucky. Oh, people keep asking me if I'm selling these. No, my mom got these for me at a store. I wouldn't even know how to make beanie things, but I appreciate those of you who are asking. Anyway, let's start the video off by low-key talking shit about other moto vloggers without actually mentioning their name, because that'd be, you know, we can still kind of use the pussy denial thing. Go ahead and get a head start on that moto vlog in 2017. That's the new cool thing to do. That's how we're all gonna grow our channels this year. Fuck everybody else, but not really, but yeah, really. So it's cold, it's late. By the time you're watching this, I'm not even here. I'm in San Diego. I'm just helping my brother move. Don't freak out, because I know people always like, oh dude, you were in San Diego, you didn't hit me up. I live in San Diego, and I know this place. We could've gone and hung out. We could've go play Xbox at my house. Anyway, we're here in front of the FC again. This is a subject of a video because recently, you might notice I bought this thing, and the first thing I did when I left the dealership was this.
First fucking mile on the fucking new bike. Oh, my glasses are fogged.
This has everybody super worked up. I knew that was gonna happen, by the way. That was kind of the fun of it. I remember talking about with Spicy 110, like he's like, you know, everyone's gonna get so mad at you when you do that. I was like, I know, it's gonna be great. A lot of you guys have never even heard of the hard break-in, and that became a little bit of a discussion, and people said, fuck your motorcycle mechanics degree. Yamaha says not to do it, and Kawasaki, everyone, you know, that is true. Your little book says not to do it. I'm gonna talk about that, and I'm gonna talk about what hard break-in is, since a lot of people seem to be completely unfamiliar with it. I have videos on it elsewhere on the channel, and I tell people to go watch those, but they don't go watch those, so I'm just gonna make a new video about it and kind of show you some interesting proof too that the manufacturers do believe in hard break-in, and they kind of do it before you even get the bike to a small degree. Okay, soft break-in is this idea of running your engine easy for the first, you know, like 600 miles and then changing the oil. That would allow parts to sort of wear in properly and not cause them to break. Hard break-in is the other way. It's running the engine quite hard and then changing oil a little bit more often. I did a little bit of research on the internet. It just took a few minutes. I wanted to see videos of bikes being built by the people who make them, and I found a lot of those videos. So let's go ahead and look at that real quick. All right. I like this one at the beginning here at BMW, because you actually see the guy checking the crankshaft here for the oil sort of oil passages, the journals, I think that's how you call them, to go down. Here's some Yamaha frames being built. Yeah, everyone's got pretty high precision these days. I love the song here. KTM's being welded up. Oh, Hondas, this is great.
It is a very efficient workplace.
A very efficient workplace, usually. It's so mopey looking. But there's a lot of these videos online. They're pretty easy to find.
This is our human error-proof system.
Oh yeah, this is interesting. The guy from Kawasaki, I put it in this here. He's talking about how he says a human error-proof system, basically, and what it is there's so much things now. When the bikes go down these assembly lines, they have like codes and things, and parts have to make it in there, and if a part is missing, it throws an alarm. If you use the wrong tool, it throws an alarm. I mean, you've even probably seen in videos, right, where they're using these guns, and they know the exact bolts tightening and how much torque to give it, and it tells it to go to this bolt and this bolt. I mean, it's really neat.
If operator use wrong torque range, conveyor assembly line will be stopped. It's alarm.
So here from BMW, what it's showing is this thing it's putting the final sort of 45-degree crosshatch. It's doing the final honing of the cylinder, and it's cool because the reason it's moving up and down like that, they put this perfect 45-degree crosshatch in the cylinders. I've had to do it by hand with a honing tool and a drill. You have to really try to get that angle just right so that it gets the hatch perfectly. But I love that. You know that machine's doing it perfect. The precision's pretty cool. Look at that thing. It's going around checking it all. CBR 600s.
Each finished motorcycle is fired up for the first time.
Perfectly at putting on the bond for the 2 case halves. How cool would it be to have one of those? You ever had to do that by hand out of a tube? The Yamaha's tube. That thing is so cool. Pistons in, BMW. This was impressive to me right here, seeing them paint this onto the tank. I didn't realize that was done by hand. That's pretty cool.
El complejo industrial Iwata ha estado construyendo la última generación de motos deportivas desde
I think he said
1900.
R1. This fucking music on some of these.
The last stop in the factory is the final inspection area. First, workers visually inspect each bike. They fire up the engine for the first time, letting it warm up before the very last step, the power test, and ridden onto a special test platform.
All the BMWs is so cool. Look at this thing. They showed it off a couple times in different clips. Here, I've shown a few of these. Look at this thing. This guy hits one button all. Look at that crap. Vents coming out. Exhaust thing for the rear. There he is with the 1000 S thing. S1000. That is so cool. So what they're doing there at the very end of the test, this is the important thing I wanted to show you. They're all taking the motorcycles and they're putting them onto a dyno or a rolling road, if you want to call it that. They can test all sorts of parts of the bike by basically simulating it rolling down the road. And they also can test performance on it by running it wide open and seeing how much power it's going to make. Now I know what a lot of you are going to tell me, yeah, they're going to put them on these machines shake, but they're not going to run them wide open, you know. They're going to take it easy. And let's just see what happens here. Let's see. Yamaha is fucking around. Look at this bike right here, it's great. But the old get up to the left here. Kawasaki. You see there's everybody running their bike hard on the dyno. They want to test out their performance, and that would seem to go very much against the easy braking, keep it under $6,000, don't give it a lot of throttle kind of thing. I mean, we clearly saw the Yamaha approaching 11,000 RPMs. But let's see if KTM does anything different here.
On the dyno in their testing area, and when they fire the engine for the very first time,
You hear that? They're not pussyfooting it on that thing at all. So I guess they do things different at KTM. They actually test the engine off the bike instead of on the bike, okay? Oh, looks like they do both actually. No, that's just some very compelling stuff, Jake, but it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean hard braking's better. So what is soft braking? Okay, soft braking is the idea that running an engine easy when it's brand new is going to allow some sort of tight spots, tight parts in the engine to wear in easier. You know what I'm saying? It's going to allow them to sort of polish themselves. Let's say you had something tight, had something spinning in there, doing some kind of rotation, it's too tight. Well, maybe if you take it easy for the first few miles, it'll sort of wear itself out and get a little bit, polish this end a little bit in this end, and they'll have a more correct fit, right? That's the main idea of easy braking. Now the thing of that is, especially if you saw those factories, how precise they all are with their measurements and everything, your modern engine it's not going to have tight spots. In fact, bikes haven't had tight spots in a long fucking time in these engines. They're fucking good to go right out the bat. They can go to max RPM. There's nothing weird in there. You're not going to benefit your engine anyway by taking it easy for the first few hundred miles. Everything is the same shape now that it will be at 600 miles, unless you like ran it out of oil or something ridiculous like that. And I know that your handbook says to brake the bike in easy. In fact, some bikes even have these like weird set rev limiter things from the factory. I know that is what they say. I'm going to address that. Now the idea and the science though behind a hard brake, and what's actually happening there is the idea of running the engine hard to help make the rings create a good seal between the cylinder walls and the rings themselves. When you talk about a modern engine like this one here, like many engines for the last 20, 30 years now, but particularly in the last 20 years or so, these engines are almost always going to have a plated cylinder as well as plated piston rings. And these rings that sit on top of the pistons here, you have two compression rings and an oil ring in a normal engine like this. They expand out when you get on it hard and they press against the cylinder walls. Especially when you're riding it hard, they push much more, they put a lot more pressure against the cylinder walls, right? Now what you have there when the engine is new is two surfaces, the cylinder wall and the piston ring, that are maybe not 100% made together. They actually do have to have like sort of a frictional connection in there. It's kind of the weird place where you want it to be lubricated but also want it to make a really tight seal and not burn oil, and it kind of does and doesn't. It's a kind of a weird balance. And I like to think of it like new brakes. That makes sense to a lot of people. Let's say you have brand new rotors, brand new pads, and you know sometimes you're in a bike like that, or even a car, you put new brakes in your car, the brakes aren't super good at first. Well, that's because those surfaces need to really mate into one another. The brake pads and the rotor, they need to match, okay? And on a microscopic level, when you really look at them closely, you're going to see that pad is not perfectly straight to make a great contact patch with the rotor. The same kind of thing happens with your rings and the outer cylinder wall. You want them to have a good mating surface. Now with all that plating I was telling you about earlier, those platings that make the cylinders and the rings last for fucking ever these days, also makes them so hard it's very difficult for them to break in properly, to make a good mating surface. That's all you're doing. That's all the hard braking is about, is making that surface mate well together. Mate. I know I'm saying that a lot. You don't ever necessarily have to take it to redline. If that makes you uncomfortable, or your bike's got one of those early rev limiters, fine, don't worry about it. The main thing is loading up that engine under hard throttle. That will cause those rings to force out to the wall and be pressed tightly against there. If you do that within the first, especially really within the first 10-15 miles, it's very critical at the very, very beginning. You do it quite hard a few times like that. That's the critical time to get those to seal properly. If you go beyond that, they'll never really quite mate together properly. And what you'll have is blow-by. Now people think we have a little bit of blow-by, fine, it won't make as much top-end power. I don't care, I want to take care of my engine. Well again, you're not doing anything good to your engine by taking it easy. It's the same either way, it's fine. A good proper sound engine, if really riding it hard in the first few hundred miles was damaging to it, it's a giant piece of shit anyway and you don't want it. But what you are doing is making that seal. It's not just about making better power, it's about better efficiency. I mean, obviously you're going to get better fuel mileage, you're going to get better power, of course, but most of all, the engine's actually going to last longer. When you have blow-by, one thing that's happening there is contaminants, these carbon particles and bits are being shot down into the bottom part of the motor and mixing in with the oil and contaminating the oil almost constantly. You're almost constantly going to have this contamination in the oil. The second thing that's going to happen is you're going to get a lot of heat that forces down there. That's a lot of heat. I mean, the expanding gas is well over 1,000 degrees. That's opening the piston, pushing it down, I should say. And that air scooting past the cylinder, past the rings, down into the bottom end is really hot. Also, when it blows by like that, it shits all the oil off the side of the cylinder walls and the piston, leaving them dry. So you're constantly drying it out, and it's wearing more and more, and it becomes kind of a multiplying problem, right? It's actually a really good thing that the manufacturer ran it hard, because I'm telling you, it's really in those first few times it's ran, it's very important that they got on it very hard. And before you ever bought your bike, they already did that for you. They already took care of one of the most critical times of your new engine right then for you. And they also test it out, make sure you're getting everything you pay for. I mean, what if you buy a BMW S1000R thing, right? How much fucking money do those cost? What if you weren't getting all the power you were supposed to? And the other thing is too, if something's going to happen with a new engine, the way they're built so good now, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen right then and there as they rev it out hard and see what it can do. Now when I went to school, this was quite interesting. So I used to host sort of like those dealer manufacturer meetings for the different people. And as a student, I was allowed to sit through those meetings. It was kind of cool to see some of the inside industry stuff. It's so cool as a student to sit there and listen to a lot of behind-the-scenes things. But the Kawasaki guy, though, I was talking to him one time, and I asked him about that, literally that thing alone, about hard braking, why the manuals always say not to do that. And he actually went off on this funny rant talking about how they build the bikes a certain way, and lawyers and government things make them do all this silly stuff. I mean, look at the ridiculous turn signals and the tailpiece on this bike right here, and now you have to put catalytic converters on. Basically going on about how they have to build the bike up and then put all this crappy stuff on it, then tell you not to ride it hard. And the ride it hard part, the riding it easy, all comes into them not wanting to get sued. They actually told people, hey, take your brand new motorcycle and go rev it really hard. It's really good for it for those first few hundred miles to run it hard. If they told people to do that, they would have a lawsuit for every person that crashed, because they'd be claiming, well, I was trying to do what the manufacturer said. You know, it's not my fault. But the truth is, if you do take it easy for the first 600 miles, the most critical part's already been done for you. The very, very beginning part of breaking it hard is already been taken care of. If you take it easy, it's not as good. I still think the engine benefits for the first few hundred miles at least to run really hard, particularly the first 50 miles or so. If you really want to squeeze a little bit extra power and make sure the engine lasts a little bit longer, it's not bad. Go ahead and get on it a little bit. You don't have to take it to redline. If you don't like that, just romp it good. You know, romp it out maybe halfway through the rev range, let off. Do a lot of heavy downshifts. Heavy downshifts really good for a new engine like that. And always let them warm up, especially if you're going to get on them hard, of course. Letting the engine warm up is so critical, not only just to get the oil up to temperature, but one of the things a lot of people don't realize is the pistons are not perfectly round when they're cold. They're actually slightly ovally shaped. Now, you never be able to look at it and tell, or even roll it on a surface. It takes micrometers, and I think you have to measure down to about 1/1000th of an inch to see that. But it has to do with there's different amounts of metal across the piston where the connecting rod goes in. That's a thicker part of metal up there, than the sides are a little bit thinner. And so as that metal heats up and expands, if it was made perfectly round, well, since the thickness of metal isn't the same all the way through, it would expand, you know, in a wrong way. So it's slightly oval, then it gets hot and it gets round. I know this is like way not don't. But you know, like I said, you do you. All this, thank you for watching my video. Be sure to buy all my merch. Way too many of you guys bought the Sandcastle Dildo Series shirt. Y'all are silly. And I think it's actually gonna be possibly snowing when I get back in town, so God knows what I'm gonna do next. How do I turn this off? I don't know.